is rescinding a set of Obama-era guidelines that promoted using race to make colleges more diverse. They could look at the race of an applicant. The decision is setting up a new battle over admissions at college campuses and schools across the country. So let's bring in Michael Eric Dyson. His new book, What Truth Sounds Like, is now a New York Times instant bestseller. Also with us, CNN political commentator Paris Dennard. Great to have both of you. A happy 4th of July to both of you. Thank you for spending your holiday portion of it with us. Paris, I want to start with you. Are college campuses now officially diverse? No more work needed in achieving that?
No, I don't think that all college campuses are, quote unquote, officially diverse. I think that there is a need to do whatever we can to make sure that college is accessible and affordable, more importantly, to as many students who wish to go to a four-year institution or a community college or any other school.
I mean, if you don't think they're diverse, do you agree with what the Trump administration is doing in advising colleges to no longer look at race as part of the application process, admissions process?
Well, I think the important thing to look at with this decision that came out from the Justice Department is that it actually changes nothing about how colleges make decisions in the admissions process. It does not do anything. So to change anything of that nature, what it does is rescinds a set of guidances that the Obama administration put in without public comment. And I think what you've seen in this administration do and say is we should abide by the rules and how we do rule changes, because under the Obama administration, when they did that change on Parent Plus, and that without public comment and without doing things like that, it totally destroyed a lot of families, a lot of communities, a lot of HBCUs
I hear
and
what
things
you're saying,
like that.
But in terms of the policy itself, it does say that it is now basically official Trump administration policy that college administrators should not look at race. And if they do so, Paris, they risk an investigation or being sued by the Justice Department.
All I can tell you is what the CNN report that came out yesterday from Laura Jarrett said in that report, and I think CNN's reporting is correct.
I appreciate that.
And that it does not change anything that goes on a college campus as it relates to admissions processes.
Michael, do you think that this changes something?
Absolutely. Tone, temperature, the timing, the approach, coloring people's perception. If there is a perceived pressure by the Trump administration that race should no longer be a consideration. Look, already it was illegal to have a quota. That is to say, we're going to make up for the numbers of black and brown people who have been historically denied, or compensation to make up for the historically maligned African American and Latino populations. But what it does suggest is that there should be a consideration of race and a holistic understanding of how college administration, college admissions are administered. So in that case, race is a significant feature among many others when considering a person, so that diversity enhances not only African American and Latino people who have been denied access, but those white students who need to have the benefit of those black students and brown students. For instance, think about the fact we would have far fewer people inclined to call the police on strange acting black or brown people if they actually had a college course with them and interacted with them. But secondly, what's interesting here, we're not talking about the masses of colleges and universities here. We're speaking about the intense competition for the elite, the top echelon, so that 15% of college age students are black, and yet there are only 6% at these elite institutions. Latinos, 22% of the population, and only 13% at these elite colleges. So we're not talking about, the Detroit Pistons. We're speaking about the Golden State Warriors. We're not talking about the average free agent. We're talking about LeBron James. So we're talking about the competition over scarcer and scarcer resources. And what the Trump administration has done here is rejected the principle of diversity as the predicate for expanding the minds of American students so that we understand race, class, culture, gender, and the like.
I hear
and
your
that's
premise.
part of the problem.
I hear your premise, Michael, but I think if I can try to interpret what the Trump administration says it's doing, is that they think that college admission should be merit-based and it should be colorblind.
Of course, but first of all, they usually quote Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "Judge me by the content of the character, not the color of my skin." But Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963, in his book Why We Can't Wait, said that if the nation has done something special against the Negro, as we were then called, for 240 years, the nation must do now something special for the Negro. So merit is dependent upon who counts what is meritorious. Think about this. When people used to get access to schools, they were like, "You're a violin player from Vermont, and we have a deficit of people from there." There were always extra academic, extracurricular considerations to play in terms of doling out who got into these schools or not. So race is one among many others.
For sure,
if race has been used as a demerit, it has to be constituted as a merit.
Great point. There was always a desire for geographic diversity. So, Paris, what about that? Do you think that, as the administration seems to be suggesting, all applications should be colorblind, they will not be able to look at race, or do you think that it makes it somehow a richer environment to be able to look at someone's race in applications?
I think former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice said it best when talking about this specific issue. She said, race is a factor, but race should not be the factor in determining one's admission into a college or university.
I mean, it sounds like the Trump administration is saying, I'll read it to you. The Trump administration said Tuesday it was abandoning Obama administration policies that called on universities to consider race as a factor in diversifying their campuses, signaling the administration will champion race-blind admissions.
Look, I think that, make no mistake about the president's feeling on merit, and the president does feel that we should help people that need merit, that meet certain criteria and that are qualified and have all the scores to do things. But I don't think that this should by any means suggest that the administration is somehow against minorities. When you look at what this administration has done specifically in terms of supporting HBCUs, or when you take it a step further, what this administration has done in promoting things like apprenticeships, which are very important.
I think that,
Allison, to answer your question, yes, the president is denying the opportunity for college consideration of race and class.
I think what is important to realize is that go back to the story posted by CNN that Laura Jarrett and others did. And it said explicitly, this will not change.
Laura Jarrett's wording is excellent, but I'm just reading to you what the Trump administration policy is.
I'm a college professor. I deal with original sources, not secondary sources. Ms. Jarrett, bless her heart, is a secondary source. When you look at the proposal and the policy change itself, what Attorney General Sessions is doing as head of the Department of Justice is denying the legitimacy and the validity of considering race as a factor. So the reality is, what Mr. Dennard has just indicated, that race should play a factor, in quoting Condoleezza Rice, the president is denying the legitimacy of that through the Department of Justice. So yes, in terms of original sources, because that's what we deal with in elite institutions of higher education, is that when we go to the source itself, we see that the president is denying the legitimacy of race and therefore not considering that as a diversity mandate on American public education.
If colleges do not consider race anymore?
You all are out of control talking about this as it's some crisis. Dr. Dyson is so obsessed with his elitism and his elite schools. I don't care about Harvard or Yale or Princeton or all these elite schools. What I'm concerned about are...
Clearly you're not.
I'm not. And I think the American people are not concerned about the elitists and the elite schools.
You're engaging in a red herring, sir. You're not answering the question. The question is, do you think it's legitimate to consider race as a factor in admissions to higher education? That's the question. You keep avoiding it.
Well, Dr.
Go to one of these elite schools and learn how to engage in analytical scrutiny, and therefore you would be able to answer the question.
Dr. Dyson, your elitism is offensive. And I think what we have a problem in this country is thinking that...
I don't have elitism. I have skill, competency, merit-based.
Paris, but hold on. Paris, it sounds like you do think that race should be a factor.
I think race is a factor. I think diversity is important. Nobody
and so if it were going away, that would upset you.
And that is the point. It's not.
It sounds like it is,
The point that I'm making is, if you go to any college campus today, if you go to one of the elite schools that Dr. Dyson is so obsessed with, that thinks that's the only way you can be smart in this country, if you go there...
You're putting words in my mouth. Not what I said. Go to school, take a class, learn to engage in argument logically, sir, not emotionally.
I'm not engaging in any type of
Yes, you are. You're ascribing
Hold
to
on,
me
Michael,
sentiments
let
I
him
did
finish
not
his thought.
articulate.
So, Paris,
I
yes,
did not express those ideas. I'm simply saying that when you talk about access, you among many other Americans think, access to Harvard, Yale, or Princeton. That's what the debate is. The debate is about elite institutions that credential people that go on, therefore, to make significant marks on life. I'm not suggesting that those who go to other places. I started at a historically black college and university, then went to a little-known white school. So I, sir, understand the need for access to higher education at every level.
Okay.
What you're avoiding here is dealing with the fact that you're being asked, is race a consideration legitimately and validly
Michael, let him answer.
in granting admissions
You've
to
made
higher
your point.
education? Just answer the point.
Go ahead, Paris.
I'm confused as to whose show this is, but I will tell you.
Go ahead, Paris. Please answer the question, and you'll get the last word.
Diversity is important. But what we should take from this ruling is that it does not change anything that's going to happen on any college campus tomorrow or in the near future. And that's the point.
I'm not sure you're right about that, Paris. I mean,
I am right about that.
The policy is that it was abandoning Obama administration policies that called on universities to consider race as a factor. That is what's happened here.
Sounds like access to those schools would make a big difference in argumentation on CNN as well.
And when you go to those schools, they are not going to all of a sudden abandon.
Not all of a sudden, but I mean, you're looking at a time frame, but are you comfortable with this policy?
What I'm comfortable with is the administration doing the right thing on the rule of law in terms of how to apply these guidances. Because when the Obama administration just unilaterally put in a guidance like this with Parent Plus, it was a disastrous effect on many students.
Red herring,
okay, I know, I hear you. You're more focused. I understand.
He's not dealing with the point.
Hold on, Michael. I hear you, Paris. You're more focused on process than policy. Okay, I get it. We're going to leave it there. Paris Dennard, Michael Eric Dyson, thank you both for making your points.
Thank you.
Look, the issue here is this is a policy from an administration. It is not the rule of law, but it does tell you what the administration wants here. What the administration wants is for race to not be a factor. Sure. Right now, the law, which has not changed, is race can be a factor. The important thing to remember here, though, is that the Supreme Court will likely hear cases about this in the next year or two, and with a new justice, very well may rule that race cannot be a factor here.
Yes, and also, I mean, according to the reporting, yes, you're right. It is not a law, but it will, if colleges don't take this directive, they are opened up for investigations or lawsuits from the Department of Justice.
And this administration chose to make this a policy priority, this statement. Why did they make this statement? It's not as sanguine as Paris would have you believe, unfortunately.
All right.